Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to talk about all the people that say, in couples therapy or in general, you don't want me to agree with you if I don't agree, do you? You would never want me to say I agree if I don't really agree, right? Those people. And I will talk about why that is a pretty inaccurate assumption that the person wouldn't want that, and why it is in fact healthy to agree with people right after I tell you to subscribe. So my most recent episode was on, let's see what it was on. It was on how often you should and should not have non-orgasmic sex, meaning taking one for the team as a woman, having sex that you do not think that you're going to finish, or it's obvious that you didn't, or you know you're not going to because you're not in the mood. How often should you do that? And I discussed that on that episode. You also get about 162 or 5 or something extra episodes if you subscribe. So lots and lots of extra content for the Dr. Psych Mom fans among you, which anybody listening to this likely is. Okay, so when people say, I hear it more from men. So, I mean, that's the reality, is I hear more from men that say, she just wants me to agree with her. Like, this is like a bad thing. She just wants me to agree with her. I think they say this like almost embarrassing, like they're confessing that their wife has an alcohol problem or that she beats the children. They're like, sometimes I think she just wants me to agree with her. Then they sit back and they're waiting for me to be like, oh my God, what a monster, holy shit. She wants you to be disingenuous. She wants you not to be true to yourself. And meanwhile, it's about like, do you like the Christmas cookies that she baked? Do you think that she did a cute crafts project with the kid? Do you think that your son should do soccer, or you think he should do, capture the flag at recess? It's like a nothing. It's a non-question, So I have a post that says, alert, you don't need to have an opinion on most things, and the 90-10 rule can help. And this podcast may be the equivalent in podcast form of that. If you have opinions about everything, just stop. Think about why. Why do you have that? It's likely because you were raised to debate and to be opinionated. And it may have helped you in your job, especially if you're a lawyer. And it's not helping you in your intimate life, no way. And it's probably not helping you in your social life. And it's probably helping you at work much less than you think interpersonally, although perhaps you can win a closing argument or whatever. Win a case, do a good closing argument, however you say that. So the point being, nobody likes somebody that just literally has an opinion about everything. They think that all the opinions are important, and God forbid that they should ever agree with something that they have not already thought of as correct. It's interesting because the people that say, does she just want me to agree with her all the time? They always put that in. Does she just want me to agree with her, everything that she says? Then I'm like, how many things does she say that you agree with? It's like, they can't even come up with like any, It's like if you are not an agreeable person, and agreeable is great. So agreeable is not like bad. It's not like a doormat. Agreeable is one of the big 5 personality traits, agreeableness. So you could remember them with the acronym OCEAN, open to experience. So that's open-mindedness, which is super important in a partner. Conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And people who are low on agreeableness have worse marriages. That's the research. Why? Agreeableness means, can you come to a consensus with somebody? Are you somebody people like to be around? If your friends invite you to go bowling, are you going to say, oh yeah, good idea? Or are you going to say, I don't like the bowling alley? Because then you're not going to get invited to do anything. Not bowling, not anything else that they decide to do either, because you're disagreeable. If you change it to disagreeable, you'll understand. Nobody likes somebody who's disagreeable, right? So you could be like, oh, agreeable, that sounds like such a pussy, right? What about disagreeable? That sounds like more of a pussy, honestly. Like if you're the kind of guy who thinks it's unmasculine somehow, and you're like a wussy, to agree, think about disagreeing. You think that there's like women who are like, oh my God, that's so hot. He disagrees with everything. Oh my God. It is, what an exciting, iconoclastic, free-thinking, self-starting man. He just disagrees constantly. No, they're like, he is so disagreeable. He's difficult. I have a whole podcast on when your wife thinks you're difficult or defensive. This is like the worst. To be a difficult person, it makes you seem more pathetic. It makes you seem like every little thing you got to make into a fight because you don't have any other things going on in your life and you do not have anything of greater consequence than arguing about stupid shit. So it makes you seem like a less important person worthy of less respect. And the interesting thing is that men who do this, and I'll get to women that do it too, but the men who do this always think that the opposite would make them like emasculated, to just be a yes man. That's what they say, a yes man. So you want to be a no man? You're going to be a no woman because no woman wants to be with that. And so it's difficult to be around. It's very taxing and tiresome. And most women then will just stop talking to you. If you always have a problem with everything, then they'll just stop talking to you. So you got to think when you say, oh, she just wants me to agree with everything. Why don't you start agreeing with more stuff? Like anything, start with anything and go from there. So there are people who were raised that when somebody says something in their family of origin, it sparks a debate instantaneously. It doesn't matter. So like your mother would have said, why don't we go out for Chinese? And your father would go, I'm not in the mood for Chinese. Bam, it begins, right? The bullshit begins. It's not going to be a good night. Nobody's happy. If you did not grow up in a house like that, then you cannot understand it. But for the people that, intellectually you can understand it, but the people that did are like, it resonates like a bell. It's like exactly right. Yes, that's what it was like in my house. My mother would say, I think we should go to Florida for vacation. My father would be like, I don't like Florida. He would say, oh, I think that we should, sell the house in the next 10 years. Your mother would be like, who wants to move anyway? It's just like literally, it's like any fucking thing that one of them says, the other one says no. It's like a starting place. It's like a dance. It's like that's their moves in a dance. And you know who does this? People low in agreeableness and high in neuroticism, AKA, the worst people to be married to. And if that was your parents, or at least one of your parents, because sometimes there's one disagreeable with one who's overly agreeable, who really does lay down, and I'll talk to you about that in a sec, then that is the pattern that you know. So let's just talk about it now. If you saw one parent who was a steamroller and an asshole and the disagreeable one, but then you saw one that really was a doormat, well, any child wants to be like the strong partner that they saw, the strong parent, even if that guy or woman was an asshole, because that is at least not a weak doormat. So then when you're older, you become that, even though as a kid you hated that parent, probably for being an asshole. Because every time you would say something, they would argue with it too. You would say, I think I should go to the mall. Why? When? How? No, the mall is bad. Why do you go to the mall? Why don't you do something else? Everything starts a problem. So remember, the parent who did that to you, you didn't think of as iconoclastic and thinking for themselves. You thought of them as a douchebag, right? You thought, man, I can't say anything in this house. Or else you thought, man, mom can't say anything without dad just telling her it's a bad idea. You don't want to be this person. You don't want to be married to this person. Nobody wants to be married to this person. So the women that do this, they also grew up in a similar house. The difference is that a lot of women will do it passive-aggressive instead of aggressive because women are trained so much not to be aggressive. So this will be like you'll say to your wife, here's just the classic. Hey, why don't we have more sex? Why don't we go upstairs? Well, I don't know. No, I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm tired. It's like right away there's a problem. Right away come from a place of no. Hey, you want to go out and get burgers tonight? No, because, and I'll tell you, it's not because I don't want to go out for burgers. Spoiler, it is because she doesn't want to go out for burgers. But it's because, kids got to get up early tomorrow. So there's like always a reason. It's always comes in a very negative, kind of down mood. There's not any response to any ideas that are spontaneous at all. And even if they're not spontaneous, even if you say, what about we go out for burgers in the summer sometime? Even if like logically a person can't be like, my God, I can't say we'll never go out for burgers, right? But then she'll be like, oh, well, yeah. Yep. So then you're like, well, shit, she doesn't want to go at all. You don't even know why she doesn't want to go, except that she never wants to do anything she doesn't want to do. And that's it. So in both of these cases, in all of these cases where somebody is like this, it's because they're very anxious. They're super, super anxious. They never, ever, ever, ever want to be outside their comfort zone. If they did not come up with the idea themselves, then they don't like it. If you say something that they didn't think about, the safest thing that they could do is say no or defer it or argue it. And so this goes along with being very rigid, and at the extremes can be obsessive compulsive personality disorder. When you're rigid as fuck, I have a podcast, OCPD, when you're rigid as fuck. This is not OCD. That's different. It's OCPD, a personality disorder where you're very rigid. But anyway, people who act like this they're acting as though they're very assertive, that know their own mind, especially the men who do it. But really, they're very anxious. They cannot go with the flow. They cannot just agree. They always think there's some risk to them. There's some risk of not having planned it themselves, not coming up with the idea themselves. They're also very, very, very insecure about how they're perceived. So if they have not already had a thought, they don't want to agree with somebody else's thought in case somehow it turns out to be the wrong thought. So just even entertaining a thought without preparation becomes an anxiety-provoking situation because you have not researched this thought fully, and there was a lot of humiliation in the family of origin, a lot of humiliation for people who are wrong. So there's right and wrong, black and white thinking. So then you're always worried if you do this that somehow you're going to be proven to be stupid, wrong, or in some way humiliated for what you think. So it's much easier to never agree. Don't ever agree because you just heard that thing. Agreeing means somebody says something and then you say, oh, this is a good idea. All right, great. Fun. Sounds good. Good point. I always tell guys, 2 magic words, good point, right? Because this is the opposite of what I'm talking about. Being disagreeable would be saying good point, good idea, sounds fun. All of those 2-word phrases can make your marriage go so much better. By the way, it can for women as well, obviously. If your husband says, why don't we go upstairs? You say, sounds fun. You'll probably solve your own problem because he'll drop dead from shock. You won't have to have sex with him. But if he goes upstairs and he recovers from the heart attack of the shock of you saying sounds fun, and you actually have sex, then your marriage will probably be 50% better the next day. So, and I have posts that say, if you want your wife to be more open-minded in bed, be more open-minded out of bed. There's so many guys who are like, my wife is so close-minded. She won't give oral. She won't do anal. She won't turn around. She won't take her clothes off. She won't put the light on. But then when we come into couples counseling, she's like, I wanted to get new cabinets for the kitchen. He said, no, that's a stupid idea. It won't increase the value of the house at all. Instead, we have to spend money in exactly this order. Cabinets are fine. What's wrong with you? So it's like, literally, like, he says the same thing about the cabinets that she says about doing anal, so who's getting fucked up the ass? Nobody in a good way and everybody in a bad way. So if you want your wife or your husband to be more open-minded, then you got to look inward first and say, am I being a disagreeable, difficult person? So what can you do instead? Well, I already told you, you can say good point, good idea. Or if you cannot bring yourself yet to do that, find something that you agree with. Something. So she says, I want to renovate the cabinets. And you say, I agree. The cabinets are looking a little bit old. But I want to look at the budget first, but you're right that the cabinets look old. Bam, you agreed. You agreed, and her face will soften because, oh my God, there's not going to be a problem. What a shock. Must be her birthday. Or if your husband wants you to do something in bed. I have a podcast that said, it was some sarcastic title, like here's a bright idea for if you don't want to do exactly what he wants in bed, do literally any other thing that is new and exciting, anything, and it's true. So your husband says, why don't we try, a sex toy? You don't want to try the sex toy. Well, first of all, who cares, who cares about the cabinets? Who cares about the sex toy? You only live once. But if you can't get there yet and your own individual therapy has not really made you see the forest for the trees, then say, well, I like that you're suggesting new things. Why don't I think of something fun that we could do? And then think of something that's still somewhat inside your comfort zone, but maybe something you haven't done in a while. But you're coming at it, you're agreeing with one part. You're agreeing that sex life is boring, which was the implicit thing that he was saying. And you're saying, all right, I'm not going to do that, but you're focusing on what you can say. It's like a sales technique. Say yes instead of no. Find something you could say yes to instead of no. If you have a wireless provider and you call and you want to change your plan to something that they don't offer, they don't say, no, we don't offer that. That's impossible, stupid. They don't say that, right? They say, oh, we have 2 plans that could be better for you. There's this plan and here's this plan. And then you'd be like, I guess that one of those might be a little better, even though they're not exactly what you wanted. You wanted whatever, and this is whatever plus X, minus X. Who cares? At least they're coming at it from that they're agreeing with you. They're saying, oh, okay, here's some options. So do the same thing when you're trying to communicate with your kids, with your partner, with your friends, with coworkers. You come at it from what can you do? What can you agree with? Can you agree with even the underlying sentiment? The underlying sentiment is usually something needs to change. That's the underlying sentiment. So when your wife says, let's go out for Chinese tonight, she's basically saying, I'm bored. When your husband says, let's try a sex toy, he's saying, I'm bored. So if you don't want to go out for Chinese tonight, maybe you could say, oh yeah, I don't want to eat at home either. Eventually you could get to where you just go out for Chinese food because who gives a shit, right? But before that, on your journey of trying to figure out why you're so closed-minded, hint, hint, you got to do some family of origin work in your therapy or coaching or whatever the hell you do. Hopefully you're doing something. Then you could say, man, I'm sick of eating at home too. Even just that is joining your wife in her desire to eat out. And then maybe you could say, I'm not in the mood for Chinese, so maybe we could go for Italian. She'll be so honestly shocked that you agreed with the idea to go out, in most cases, that it may get rid of the whole conflict. But of course, if you want extra credit, you could also just try to agree with shit, if you're not going to die. If you're not going to die and your morals are not, it's not like she's saying, hey, do you want to murder someone tonight? She's not saying that. She's saying, do you want to get this different sort of cuisine? Like, who cares, But then again, when you're raised in a very, very closed-minded home, this becomes a goddamn fight because everything can be a fight, And so while you are on your journey of self-development to be at the place where you could say, sure, let's get Chinese food, then you could meanwhile say, you know what, I want to eat out too. Good idea. And then, so you agreed with that part of it, and then maybe you just can't bring yourself yet to do the other. And this is the same for anything in bed, out of bed, parenting, money, in-laws, travel, any of the hot button topics. All right, I hope that you guys found this interesting, and I hope that you execute on some of these, suggestions in your own marriage, and then you see, because people write in and they say, I've been working on my marriage with the help of your videos and podcasts and posts, and it's actually getting better. I get emails like that multiple times a week minimum, and that could be you. So start executing on the things that you learn in the podcast. Why not? Why else would you waste your time listening to it if not to try? All right. And of course, if you can't, then therapy or coaching can help. Always look out for my practice, Best Life Behavioral Health, my virtual practice. I got 12 people working for me. I have great people. I hire them all myself. Sometimes people are like, are they going to have the same personality as you? No, we don't have the same fingerprint either. But I like them and they are a good practitioner. And anybody who's not at least somewhat direct is not going to be drawn to work for me. All right. Well, talk to everybody soon. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.